Thinking back to my early childhood, I remember growing up with older brother, mom and a dad, all in a household. Things were simple, things were happy, things were good. And then something happened. Parents began to argue, had some very heated arguments, and it just wasn't a one-time thing. They happened over and over. And so I remember as a child getting a little concerned and a little nervous, a little scared of what's going on and why the family dynamics are changing. And so my dad had came in and had said that him and my mom were going to go through a divorce. And I remember not exactly being sure. I knew what it meant, but being sure what that meant for us. And so I remember just one day, finally, it seemed like it took a long time before my dad actually moved out. But that day, me and my brother and my mom left. We came back home and the house was a little emptier as my dad had moved out all his stuff. And so I remember life was different at that point. And then a few years later, I noticed that my dad had came over and talked to my mom as usual after dropping me and my brother off after a weekend of spending time with my dad. And he had stayed over on the couch in the living room. And questions began to get in my mind of what's going on. And so pretty soon there was a difference in my father as he began to hang out more and he began to reconcile with my mom. And they did eventually get married again after a little bit over 2 years of divorce. And so you may ask, what was the change? What happened? What was different? You see, growing up in my early childhood, we were not churched. I did not know about God, heard of him. Didn't know about Jesus, heard of him. My mom did. She grew up in church, but my dad never did. And so during the years of divorce, my mom said, you know what? I need to go back to God and make a change in my life and my kids' lives. And I will tell you, even though in adulthood I did fall away for a little bit, that God has been the center of my life because he is the one that transforms people. Now, I want you to stay tuned for the story. I got a very special guest on who also went through a transformation in a different way and saw transformed lives, his own life that was transformed. I saw a transformed life in my father and myself. And people may not be religious per se, but if you want to hear a story about somebody who has made a change and overcome addiction, please listen up. It's a very good story for you guys. Welcome to the Rodney Podcast. Okay, sometimes I go through Instagram and I find a story that I really love or that really hits my heart. And our next guest that I have on a podcast, his name is Chance. And I was going through Instagram, saw a post of his. He had a great story. And I said, man, I got to get this guy on. So Chance, his Instagram tag is Chance_AK_Billups. He's from Arizona. Chance, how you doing?
Good, Rodney. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate you willing to kind of share your story and be an open book to people. And you have a good story, my friend.
Yeah, so, I grew up with a really good background. My mom did her absolute best to raise me and give me a quality of life that I couldn't have even imagined having. But, I always sought out that fatherly figure, that mentor figure. So, at a young age, I started hanging out with older people, and I was in middle school and they were in high school. And with that came experimenting with marijuana and alcohol at a real young age. And then eventually I broke my shoulder and tore the ligaments in my shoulder. I was put on painkillers, and that's how it started. Eventually, by the time I was 14, I had tried heroin for the first time, and my life just continued to spiral out of control for the next 5 years until eventually I was hit upside the head with criminal charges. And I was given the ultimatum, go to prison for 5 years or try this teen challenge faith-based program and see what the judge will do for you. And through that 13-month program, I was really given the opportunity to reflect on my life and find out what was important to me. Growing up, I didn't really have too much of a background with Christianity or with Christ or any religion, really. So, really given that opportunity to see what the Lord has done for mankind and everything, I couldn't help but reflect on all the facts that I was finding. So, I completed Teen Challenge in March of last year, and then I served as an intern and staff member for an additional year. And my faith in God has just exploded, and my heart is really to just help individuals with addiction and other struggles, just to find that there is true liberation in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And just breaking that story, like I said, it's an incredible story. I love it, man. And going back to when you got hurt and you got prescribed painkillers, looking back, what kind of effect did that have on you? Did they help you? Do you think they hurt in the long run? Was there an alternative? What do you think about those painkillers?
Well, as far as short term goes, they definitely did help. As far as if I could have gotten away with just taking some ibuprofen, I probably could have, but the doctors prescribed me these, and I tried them, and I noticed that it didn't just help with my physical pain; it helped with my emotional and my mental pain too. So it didn't take long before I was taking them multiple times a day because they helped me block out all of the negative, which unfortunately in this world, the negative is usually the refining process that you grow through.
Right.
So I became pretty stagnant, and I didn't want to feel anything negative, so I decided to choose the easy way out and just continue to take the painkillers, which was definitely a detriment in the long run.
Yeah, and so when you talk about growing up, and a lot of times, a lot of people come from single family homes. I was a single parent for a while, raising my son, and it's difficult. And I know, like you said, your mom did a fantastic job, but also, these older guys that came, and it sounds like they kind of introduced you to the drugs.
Oh, definitely. So when I was 14, I had ran out of my painkillers. I was told that I can't get them anymore because I had already had surgery. It was a success. And I went through withdrawal from the Vicodin and the Percocets, and I didn't even know that I didn't know what withdrawal was at the time. And I was 14 at the time, like I had said, and an older buddy, I believe he was 16 or 17, he told me, "Hey, man, you can try heroin. It's basically the same thing as these painkillers you've been taking anyways, but it's twice as strong and half as expensive. It'll make you feel instantly better."
Wow.
So instead of manning up and just dealing with the discomfort I would have felt for the next 4 to 7 days, I just decided to, take that instant gratification route and go for it. And little did I know that would be the worst mistake of my life so far.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a balance, because I think that's kind of a big thing in our society where, you have these prescription drugs, these painkillers, and it sounds like, instead of getting to the root of the problem sometimes, the medical profession just kind of prescribes you drugs and says, here you go, have a good day.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree. I mean, there is a time and a place, people that are going through absolute excruciating pain. I do think that painkillers can be of a benefit, but for someone like me that probably could have gotten away with just icing it in some ibuprofen, I mean, the surgery was one thing. I probably could have been put on a very low dose for a few weeks at most, but I was given an excess amount of these painkillers for it was 2 or 3 years straight. I had the initial injury when I was 12, and I didn't end up. I was prescribed the painkillers as well when I was 12, and I didn't end up being denied my prescription until I was about 14 and a half. So
Wow.
2.5 years of everyday painkiller abuse during the developmental stages of your brain, that's going to create instant dependence.
Wow. Yeah, and so, this friend comes along, and I can't believe, they said try heroin, a very addictive drug. And so when you tried it and you did it, what did it do for you?
It was like um, that amazing feeling I had kind of gone over initially with painkillers, it was like that heightened to tenfold, you know? All of my pain in my shoulder, all of my pain mentally, any worries that I had, they just faded away. And that sounds great short term, but then you start to steal to support your habits. You start to take things from people that you care about most. And all you really end up caring about is yourself. You will take something from the people closest to you. You will, drive your parents' car when yours is out of gas and get in a car accident and not even think twice about it because you're not focused on anything other than keeping yourself well. That's the term basically used. Make sure you don't get sick. Make sure you're constantly high. And, your tolerance goes up, so you have to continue to feel the habit. By the end of my addiction, I was spending $100 a day on heroin. And to support that habit, that takes a lot of doing dirt, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, the withdrawals I hear are terrible. And like you said, it creates this thing where you start to steal from people, from family. And so the stealing kind of got you in trouble. It looks like at age of 19, was it?
Correct. Yeah. So I was working for a company as loss prevention, ironically enough, and I was on heroin, and I come to find out that being a heroin addict, having keys to the expensive merchandise, and being in charge of the cameras at the store is not a good combination. So,
Yeah.
I stole from the store and I got away with it a few times, and then eventually, detectives showed up at my house and they said, we have all this evidence on you. You're going to go away for a long time. The only saving grace you may have is trying this Teen Challenge program. So the next day, my mom said, you're homeless and we're going to press charges on you for the stuff you stole from us as well, or you're going to try Teen Challenge. And that was a swift kick in the butt I needed to really at least take the initial steps, even reluctantly, on getting my life together. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah. So talk about Teen Challenge for those who may not know what it is, what it does, and what it did for you. Just kind of talk about that a little bit.
So Teen Challenge is an international program. There's men and women centers all across the U.S. and the globe. It's essentially a 13-month inpatient rehabilitation center, but the foundation is based solely on Christian principles. So it's like a hybrid between a discipleship program and a rehabilitation center. The whole year is basically set up for you. You are set on a rigorous schedule. You are given a life coach, and you are given basically an introduction into faith. There's church 7 to 9 times a week, which was definitely not the highlight of my first week there, to say the least.
Right.
But when I first got there, I was like, man, these guys are kind of nuts. They're praying for me and stuff. They don't know me. They say that I just need Jesus, and I don't want anything to do with any of them. But the longer I was there, the more I realized, these people, they're not just saying this for lip service. They truly do care, and they truly do want to see me succeed. So I decided after 2 months there that I'm going to give it my all and I'm going to figure it out. And sure enough, after 13 months, I wanted to stay as a staff member to kind of pour back in the way I was poured into. And when I came in, I couldn't wait to bolt through that exit gate. So that's to say a lot about what Teen Challenge did for me. And like I said, there is a center in just about every state in the U.S. So it's definitely a resource I would recommend to individuals who may be struggling and can't find other avenues to venture towards.
Wow, that sounds good. And I always like when people are transformed and when they change, especially, me being a Christian myself and speaking in churches and things, I know the power that God has over us. And when you put your life in Jesus's hands, it really does change us. But I know there's a lot of people out there who may be going through something very similar and just have these barriers that kind of stop them from progressing forward. What do you think some of the things are that stops people from changing and moving forward and progressing with this transformation?
I think a lot of it has to do with what society says. Society does say that once you're an addict, you're always an addict. You always have to deal with that monkey on your back, so to speak. And from my experience may be anecdotal to some, but I can honestly say I have not had any cravings for the substance I was addicted to for 5 years, and I've been clean for 3 years. Past year and a half, I have not had any sort of craving for it, and I truly believe that I have been redeemed through the coping skills I was given at Teen Challenge, but more importantly, through Christ. I think that, like it says in Corinthians, those in Christ are of a new creation.
Yeah.
I truly believe that he transformed my mind, he renewed my mind, and now I stand before as an individual who has changed. Another thing is people want that instant gratification. An addict for 2 or 3 years may give up instantly when they realize that recovery is going to be longer than 1 week. But it's taken 2 to 3 years to get to the point where they're at in their addiction. So it would make sense for it to be a gradual process that it's going to take longer than just a few weeks to completely recover.
Right.
And, the last thing is people I think, underestimate the power in their words and their thoughts. A lot of people defeat themselves before they even give recovery a chance. They do believe that they're always going to be this way, so they never even give it a second thought on reaching out to get help.
Right. Yeah. And so, one quick thing I was thinking about, a lot of people when they may be down and out or they may not believe, I just want to do a quick little, get your thoughts a little bit about people who just kind of doubt that there is a God or feel that God isn't real and that, I'll go through rehab or something, but God has nothing to do with it. What kind of things would you say to them?
I say that when I was growing up, I was brought to church. I was never in like a strong religious household, but I was brought to church on like the main seasons like Easter and Christmas. But
Right.
I was a full-blown atheist. I didn't want anything to do with Christianity. I thought that anyone who is a Christian was absolutely nuts. And I still maintain that belief system when I went into Teen Challenge initially. I bucked back at every single word that was said to me by the pastors and the life coaches. And I tried to disprove everything that the Bible had to say. But the more I tried to disprove, I would be given books like The Case for Christ,
Yes.
or I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, or books along those lines.
Yes.
And that would end up proving me in the wrong. And that carried on to when I still had my own questions after I graduated the program. So I continued to do books. I read stuff about Richard Dawkins, and I looked at both sides of, evolution versus creationism. And for me, I can't imagine a world that just came in out of nothing.
Right.
For something to be in existence, there had to be something that existed before to create it.
Right.
So if someone truly doesn't believe in God, that's fine. I still recommend that they seek help through some sort of program, even if it's AA or NA or something along those lines.
Right.
But I really want to recommend that they do the research on both sides. They don't just listen to what's taught in society, what's taught in public school. They do their own research.
Right. And so that kind of leads me to my last question is, people, kind of identify they need a change, they need help, they may be addicted, they may have other issues too. And, they get through all the barriers of what's maybe stopping them. But, what kind of advice would you give them as far as the next steps? They kind of realize there's a problem. They kind of want to fight through the barriers and make it through. What's kind of like the next step that they need to take?
I was told that the biggest show in being a man is reaching out for help when you truly need it and not trying to burden the struggle on your own. If you're struggling with addiction and you're ready for help, you got to tell people, man. I mean, we live in a world of information, a world of technology, social media. It may not be the best place, but if you don't know of anyone in your immediate family that has resources and you can't find any on your own, put it on Facebook, say, hey, I'm struggling, or for your own sake, put, hey, I know of a friend who's struggling. Does anyone know of any sort of places that help with this particular addiction or addiction in general? There are centers There are groups, there are meetings that are just a Google search away, and you can find someone that can at least give you the correct steps in the right direction.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Hey, well, this is Chance. I'm talking with Chance. His Instagram tag is Chance_AK_Billups. Hey, Chance, great story, great advice. I'd love to have you on the podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rodney.
All right. Thanks, Chance.
Thanks.
Once again, I want to thank Chance for being on. And, for those of you who may be out there, who may be going through something, I really want to emphasize and kind of repeat what he said. Go out, please. Seek help. Get the help that you need. Don't be alone. Reach out to me. Reach out to him. Reach out to a professional. Go to your local church, whatever it may be. We're concerned about you guys. My goal, again, is to inspire, spread motivation, and to encourage other people. So today, go out there, spread love, spread positivity, and we will see you guys in the next one. Thank you very much.